Yes! Welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Thursday, February 16th. Big game breakdown. Just two games in the association. Wizards and the Pacers. And the game on TNT Celtics and the Bulls. Deep dive. We got Heisman odds to talk about. And Bookmaker put out some odds on potential player movement in the NFL. Bad beats bad, bets bad for the books in a second, Teddy. How about this now? It was a done deal. Now it's off. It's not close. It could happen. McGregor's in town. McGregor Mayweather, some people think it's close, some people thought it was done, the back and forth. In any event, it's a conundrum for sports bettors and odds makers as well, because I have talked to Jimmy Vaccaro, Nick Bogdanovich from William Hill, Tony Miller at the Golden Nugget. I have talked to 5 different people, and they've given me 5 different numbers and odds on this fight, Teddy. They range from minus 600, which you hang that, you're going to get taken out in a body bag by the professionals. And Tony, gun to his head, said the true odds should be minus 5,000. You got a guy who's undefeated against a guy who's never boxed before. I mean, this is going to be bananas if this happens, because the markets don't know what to do with the number.
Sure, and it's boxing. We're not talking about octagon. We're talking about boxing. Because I saw the numbers, or not the actual numbers, but theoretical numbers that the Westgate Superbook put out. And they said, if we're talking about boxing, it would be Mayweather minus 1,200. If we're talking about in the octagon, it'd be McGregor minus 1,200. But, was it? Yeah, okay, yeah. But the bottom line, Mayweather's not stupid enough to try to get in the octagon with McGregor. But what do you think, Paul? Is the fight going to happen? I mean, that's the more important question as opposed to what the odds are going to be.
Yes, there's too much money involved. And good guest coming up on my radio show. I'm talking to Kevin Ioli from Yahoo Sports. I got a lot of questions for him. It's bordering on Thunder Lips against Rocky Balboa. But, I mean, if these guys are going to make a ton of money, UFC included, I think they find a way to get it done. And according to one source, Mayweather wants this fight in the worst way because he's going to get $100 million and there's no chance he loses.
Which is a pretty good reason to want to fight in the worst way. $100 million paydays don't come around every day, Pauly. Next time you get one, let me know.
No doubt. And you can make more than that. I don't. Will you buy this? I don't know what this would do on pay-per-view.
By myself, I wouldn't buy it in a minute. I don't watch any of that stuff. But when you're out with friends or you got some friends coming over, somebody will buy it. You know what I mean? That's how pay-per-view works.
I think it can get up there with Pacquiao Mayweather, that enough people will buy the hype and think, maybe the guy's got a chance. But, if the UFC's involved, it'll be a stacked card. And then the main event with McGregor and Mayweather. Boxing doesn't do it the right way. Dana White and the UFC always get it right. Bad beats. Milwaukee laying 5 against Brooklyn. A shootout, 129-125. The Bucks led by 13 in the fourth quarter. Brook Lopez went crazy in this game.
He went crazy from three-point range. He hit 6 of 8 from beyond the arc. The 13-point Bucks lead in the fourth quarter cut to 4 at the buzzer. Now, Brook Lopez entered the game with 84 made three-pointers in 50 games, a 33% shooter. So, he goes 6 of 8 from beyond the arc. Oh, and by the way, he becomes the first player in NBA history with 6 or more three-pointers and 8 or more blocks. You can say Lopez covered the spread by himself, but tough beat if you had the Bucks and watch them fritter away that 13-point fourth quarter lead.
Yep, ESPN stats and info. The Raptors won after trailing by 17 entering the fourth quarter. Remember, they just blew a big lead against last week, I think it was. They had lost 90.
Yeah, the Pistons came back from 16 in the fourth.
Yeah, very good. They had lost 93 straight games when trailing by 17 points or more entering the fourth. Charlotte scored 10 points only in the fourth.
Yeah, they won the fourth quarter 32-10. And remember, they won the fourth quarter 32-10, and they still didn't cover. You win the fourth quarter by 22 points. You hold your opponent to 10 points, and you still don't get the money? Sorry, another wrong side for Toronto. 6-point chalk, they win by 5. Good sign for the Raptors that they found a way to get it done, but from a point spread perspective, this team's been a disaster area. Charlotte finally gets the money.
Yep, bad bet. Kansas State at home to Iowa State. They were better from 2 to 4. Iowa State won by 10, and you didn't have a chance if you took Kansas State. It was 22-6. Iowa State early, never trailed in that one.
Yeah, and the markets are always reacting to must win. Must win. Kansas State must win. They've lost 5 out of 6. They're not playing great basketball. They're not the more confident team, and yet the money rolls in on K-State. Iowa State's done, did what they've done all year. Take the crowd out of it on the highway and win the game. We saw them win at Kansas, 10 days ago? Did it against Kansas State again last night.
Yeah, Rockets bet up to 10 at home against the Heat. They got swept. They got beat again, and Miami pretty much controlled that game too.
Yeah, I mean, we asked on SportsBIT yesterday, how do we view Miami? Do we view Miami as a team with an ongoing 13-2 run? Or do you view them as a 24-32 team who had their run, and after back-to-back losses, now they're back to normal? Last night's win at Houston, straight up win, says maybe Miami really should be power rated, at least in the top half of the league, maybe a little bit higher than that, And of course, maybe the Rockets weren't sharp. They were off since Saturday, just one last game before vacation, and it wasn't a very good one for Houston.
Yep, and Orlando a bad bet. Blown out at home by the Spurs, 107-79. The Ibaka trade, that didn't work out. Now they acquired a couple draft picks. They're in total rebuild mode. I want to see how that team reacts. Not a good start with the Ibaka trade, but I want to see how they react after the All-Star break's over with.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando's been a bad bet a lot in recent weeks, and no surprise last night. That's a team that really needs a break from one another, I think. It's been a pretty rough time for the Magic for the better part of the last month or two.
And bad for the books. Providence bet up from 3-5 at home against Xavier. No, blew it. No problem for Providence.
Well, no, blew it for Xavier. Xavier was down the three starters, but blew it out. He's the latest guy to miss. Yeah. I mean, Xavier's been, it was all the money coming in on the Friars, and the Friars, Xavier's a team that has been so good when healthy, down three starters. Books tried to adjust. They could not get in front of the action. Friars got the money. Friars cashed a bunch of winning bets. Bad result for the house.
Yeah, and this one, you wondered how this was going to play out because North Carolina won by 50 the first time they played NC State. Then the reports came out before the game that Godfrey's gone at the end of the year, and he could be gone if it's a rough week for him. This didn't help.
No, and Tar Heels took the money. And whenever you see the signs of, hey, the ESPN was recording that the locker room was completely passionless and the coach is going to get fired, it's not a good sign. It isn't. And, they're at home, they're in major revenge, they're playing their in-state rival, and you have an effort like this where it's just a complete no-show on the defensive end, Gottfried will not survive this season. Remember, NC State, the Wolfpack, was ranked number 23 in the country, according to Blue Ribbon in the preseason, have not lived up to those expectations.
And here's one more bad for the books. The Suns, they caught the Lakers on a back-to-back. They were bet up from 3 to 4.5. No defense by LA in this one. 137-101. The Suns blow them out.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers lost by a point to Sacramento on Tuesday, and it was pretty much a no-show in Phoenix on Wednesday. They are ready for the break. And, imagine asking Luke Walton what that defensive game plan was. Walton, not exactly showing a lot of, just a funny picture of Walton going, I don't know what the defensive game plan is. We didn't have one. Yes, bad result for the books in that game.
Ugly. It was a layup line for most of the game for Phoenix. Up next, big game breakdown. 2 games to discuss in the NBA. Then we got football to go over. Some interesting odds to kick around in the deep dive on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. Big game breakdown. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Wizards hit the road to take on the Pacers. Red hot Wizards 217 the total. They played Friday. It was 112-107. Washington was laying 6 in that one. Wall had 26 and 14 assists. Georgia had 31 for the Pacers, but the Pacers were 4 of 21 from 3, Teddy. Big reason the Wizards got the win.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very competitive game right through the final minute. The point spread outcome in doubt, the straight-up outcome in doubt. I mean, Indiana gave Washington a real battle on the Wizards' home floor. That poor free three-point shooting did them in. But the rematch actually sets up better for Washington. Even though they're not at home for this game, this is only their second game in 6 days. And the one game they played during that span, they beat Oklahoma City by 22 in a game where no starter got to 31 minutes. Washington 14-2 in their last 16 games and had the lead in the final second, literally the final second of both losses. And I wonder, we saw Melo get the nod. Kevin Love, was hurt, not going to play in the All-Star game Carmelo Anthony gets the nod. I wonder if someone like Bradley Beal and his teammates have a little extra chip on their shoulder. The hype guy got the All-Star bid, not the guy, or the All-Star berth, I should say, not the guy who deserved it.
Pacers had a 7-game winning streak playing better defense. Then it came apart before the break. 0-5 straight up, 2-3 ATS run. Back to the lousy defense, getting up 116.6 per game in the process. Bad scenario for McMillan. Close enough against Cleveland last night to have George on the floor for 36 minutes, and Teague played 35 minutes. But now fatigue could be an issue as they tried to chase down the win, but couldn't get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a worse scenario for Indiana last night. They're close enough. They got to keep everyone in the game. They got to fight. They got to expend max energy. They don't get the win. Heck, they don't even get the cover. And now they got to play in the second nights of back-to-back after not getting it done against the Cavs. So 0-5 straight up. They just lost to Washington last week. It's a type of game where you would say, circle the wagons time for Indiana, especially after the poor three-point shooting in the first meeting really did them in. But you wonder if they're going to have the legs in order to accomplish what they would like to accomplish, or if they're going to go into the All-Star break riding a 6-game skid.
All right, one more. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. TNT. The one game on TNT tonight, Celtics and the Bulls. Bulls at home, and they're 212 the total. Weight expected to go. Celtics red hot, 11-1 in their last 12. Only 2.5 games behind Cleveland for the 1 seed. Boston needs the 2 seed. And who knows what Cleveland does. Maybe they sit LeBron with some of these games as well, and Love's out 6 weeks. So Boston, they can taste that 1 seed. Rough setting, though. 6 games in 9 nights, all court changes through every time zone. We'll see if Isaiah and the group have some energy in this one, Teddy.
Yeah, well, Isaiah certainly had energy again in the fourth quarter last night and throughout the game. A 40th straight game. Look at the tweet from ESPN Stats and Info. 40th straight game with at least 20 points. Tying the great John Havlicek, the Hall of Famer, franchise record. But you look at the minutes, and again, Boston, that was a tight game with Philadelphia last night. It was tied with 5 minutes left. It was a tight game throughout. The Sixers had the lead in the fourth quarter. The Celtics finally pulled away the last 2 minutes, despite committing a season-high 24 turnovers. But you look at the minutes, much like the game we just talked about with Indiana playing major minutes. Second night of back-to-backs for Boston as well. Crowder over 35, Smart 34, Thomas close to 34 minutes. So this is not a game where Boston's going to come in with fresh legs, although from a depth perspective, despite all the injuries and attrition, the Celtics have had a fairly deep rotation this year, and they've been a pretty good point spread team on the second night of back-to-backs.
Now, see what the Bulls are going to do, because they announced that VP John Paxson and GM Gar Forman will keep their jobs after the season. So do they begin the rebuild? Do they shop guys? Do they look at moving Butler? They still are the 7 in the East right now. Mirotic won't play, and check the status of Wade. Maybe they give him an extended break, rest through the All-Star break, rather, but he could play. In any event, what do you think they do here? Which, Hoiberg could be on the hot seat. They make the announcement with the VP and the GM, but, do you try to rebuild, or you go for a 7 or an 8 seed when you probably can't beat Cleveland anyways?
I never understand the concept of trading away your best player in an effort to start rebuilding when you're a playoff team. Right? It's one thing if you're not in the playoffs. If you're Sacramento, you haven't been in the playoffs in 10 years. All right, can I get some, can I really start something and get a big return from a DeMarcus Cousins and start from scratch, build a championship team? But Bulls are a playoff team, I don't tear that down. I don't trade Jimmy Butler at this stage. I don't even think about trading Jimmy Butler, but it's not my call to make. And if someone can get Jimmy Butler on the cheap, hey, even on the expensive, that's a deal worth making. Jimmy Butler can bring somebody a championship.
And we'll sneak one more in. College. Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan won, 126.5 the total. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Beeline doing it with smoke and mirrors again. No inside game at all for defense or rebounding. Look at this graphic. Michigan, Big Ten defense rebounding stats. Defense 12th. Effective field goal percentage, last in the conference. 2-point field goal percentage, last. 3-point field goal percentage, 13th. And on and on and on. I mean, this guy's an unbelievable coach that doesn't get enough credit, Teddy.
Well, and that's the whole point. Michigan's stats stink. All right? They haven't been able to play defense. Not against 2-point, not in 2-point range, not in 3-point range, not in the post, not on the perimeter. They don't block shots. They don't rebound well. They don't hit the offensive glass at all, dead last in the conference. And yet, here's a team 16-9 overall, 6-6 in conference, and very much in contention to make another trip to the NCAA tournament. Yeah, this is a coach who doesn't get the credit that he deserves. The only coach that gets any hype in the state of Michigan is Tom Izzo, and Izzo's team isn't very good this year.
Yep, first meeting, Whiskey was laying 10.5. They won by 4. Michigan did not get beat up down low. They played even on the boards. And they also led by 6 with 6 minutes left. Wisconsin went on a 15-0 run and held on. Wisconsin was 14 of 24 from the free throw line. Beeline not happy with the officiating as 3 Wolverines fouled out, Teddy.
Yeah, he was freaked out. And Balin's not a freaked out kind of coach after the game. It's all confusing. Confusing. We lead the country in not fouling. It was confusing what happened. So we'll just let it go. Yeah, because Derek Walton, Mortis Wagner, and DJ Wilson all fouled out of that ballgame, and that's not something that Michigan does very often. But, of course, sometimes you're playing in Madison. The whistles are going to go towards the home team. This meeting, of course, at Chrysler Arena in Ann Arbor. But, here's a Badgers team that we liked a lot on the highway earlier in the season. They opened strong. The experience factor was there for Wisconsin. Everybody on that, basically in the rotation, has playing experience, a senior-laden team. But they haven't gotten any better, Pauly, because maybe they're experienced, but they lack upside. 2-1 straight up, but 0-3 against the spread in the month of February, losing against the point spread by close to 35 points in those 3 games.
Yeah, Michigan already has a senior that found the second wind. Wisconsin could be running out of gas maybe. Derek Walton Jr., 5 straight games of at least 20 points, 23 points per game, 32 rebounds, and 25 assists. May have been as good as any player in the nation in that span. And Michigan on the bubble, big game there. Wisconsin's going to get in, but the game that the Wolverines need to have as they're on the bubble as well.
Well, I mean, with Wisconsin, you talk about how well Derek Walton Jr. has played. And for Wisconsin, their senior guard, Bronson Koning's been awful. He's got a calf injury. The last 5 games, he's shooting 25% from the field, 7 of 31 from three-point range. The assistant coach, Howard Moore. I think he'll be fine. I think with the people we have here, they'll get him back on point. And everyone is banged up right now. You're looking around the country. As a senior, as a guy that's been around, there's always that second win a senior finds because of the urgency of the moment. You can see the finish line ahead. Walton's had it. Koenig hasn't of late, and that's a big difference between these two teams' recent point spread fortunes.
Heisman odds and some bookmaker odds on Kirk Cousins that we can go over coming up next on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping up on SportsBIT, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Don't forget the Google Hangout every Thursday at 8 o'clock Pacific. Always good to talk football. Look at us, Teddy. We got some Heisman odds that are out.
Yeah, we got Heisman odds from, what do we got? Bet Online that put out some numbers for the 2018 Heisman. And yes, I think the Heisman is the stupidest award in sport. I'm not going to rant and rave about how stupid it is today. It's just a popularity contest. But it also gets us talking about college football in February. Let's do it. I'm pumped. I'm excited for college football, and it hasn't really been that long. Man, this to what, a week and a half since the Super Bowl feels like forever.
Yes, certainly Darnold leading the way at 5-1 with USC. Incredible year when he took over for Max Brown. USC took off. The kid was terrific. But Lamar Jackson, look what he did with a bad offensive line.
Sure, but Lamar Jackson had his season. There's a reason no one ever wins back-to-back Heismans. Archie Miller's the only guy that ever done it. Only guy that ever did it, I should say. And Lamar Jackson, when he faced a couple of good defenses, didn't look quite as good. He put up all of his stats against fairly weak teams. But there's some interesting numbers here, and I'm never looking for the short guy.
Well, my point is, imagine if he has a good offensive line. Your point, I know he struggled against LSU and Houston, but he was running for his life every play.
Sure, but I mean, is Louisville's offensive line going to be that much better next year? I mean, I know that Petrino's recruiting in that area, but that doesn't mean there's going to be instant dividends at the start of the 2017 season.
What were you going to say? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, in general, okay? And it's interesting to talk about. It's fun to talk about. You want a team that is likely to be playing or has a good chance to be playing in the playoffs at the end of the season. So when I'm looking at your I don't know, Saquon Barkley from Penn State, who I say, all right, maybe he's live in this race. Or Josh Rosen from UCLA. You know, your second-tier guys, your Nick Fitzgeralds from Mississippi State, or your Luke Falks from Washington State. I don't want those candidates because they're not going to get the hype. You need the guys that are going to be on the teams that win all the games and are in national championship contender. And that means your Lamar Jackson, your Sam Darnolds, your Jalen Hurts. I mean, here's a guy that wasn't even the starter for Alabama when 2016 opened. So the new offense coordinator can build the offense around him. You know, Loxley is the co-OC, but I don't know who the new hire is surely going to be to take over for Lane Kiffin at Alabama. But whoever it is, you're going to have Hurts and be able to design an offense specifically for him, which may make him live.
Yes, and certainly Bouchel could put up some scary numbers with Texas as Tom Herman takes over.
Yeah, sure. Herman's going to build an offense around that guy. So that's maybe a long shot that's worth considering. You know, but 33-1, these are not odds that are attracting me. You know, 100-1, maybe we can talk. But Bouchel, I mean, the real number for him is probably even higher than that.
Yep, and you had Lamar Jackson cashing that big ticket last year. Bookmaker opened props on some NFL players, guys that could be free agents. Kirk Cousins, what team will he play for week 1 next year? Now, the Redskins could tag him again. They'd have to pay him $24 million. Think about that. Remember how Cousins played week 17 in a win and in situation? Field plus 5-1, Redskins minus $2, 49ers 7-1, Jets 9-1, Brownies 13-1, and the Bears 12-1 there. The 49ers are supposed to be interested in several of these quarterbacks, Teddy. We'll see if they can get a deal done with maybe Garoppolo or Cousins, or if he stays put with the Redskins. But that's a lot of money to give somebody. I don't even know if people think he's any good.
Well, that's the thing with, I mean, in my mind, that's the toughest conundrum of all of them for Washington. Do we sign Kirk Cousins to a long, because Cousins is good enough, okay? He's good enough to make you competitive. I don't know that and you know, there's a lot of things to like about Kirk Cousins. I don't know if he's good enough to win a championship. I don't even know if he's good enough to win a playoff game, for that matter. And if you're going to pay franchise money for a QB over the long term, you better be pretty confident your quarterback's capable of doing something that we haven't seen Kirk Cousins do yet. If I'm Washington, I might franchise the guy again. You know, there are no better options for the Redskins than Kirk Cousins next year. That's why he's chalk on this line. You know, from a bookmaker, they expect him to be back at Washington, and I don't blame them.
Tony Romo, this one's very interesting because can you imagine the Texans with a legit quarterback and that nasty defense? And, you know, maybe he winds up in Denver. Who knows? But it's still fun to talk about. Bears 4-1. No way that happens. Cowboys, does he stay put? Plus 350. Broncos 3-1. Texans 8-1. The field plus 250. 49ers, come on. He's not going to go to a total rebuild. What do you think of that? Well, listen, he's a good quarterback, but he's a China doll at this point. One hit, he could be out for the year.
Yeah, well, that's what's happened, every recent season for Tony Romo. But, I mean, as a fan, you'd want to see him in Houston. You know, that's a team he can potentially win a title with. It's interesting to see the money for Denver, as Denver is the shortest chalk, the team there, where they're saying, yeah, Trevor Siemian, not so much. Paxton Lynch, not so much. Let's get the veteran in. It's a tried and true formula for Denver, and they had fairly decent success with some guy named Manning coming in for a couple years as a late career QB, guiding them to a pair of Super Bowls.
All right, very good. So we were probably one of the few people that laid 4 with the Monday game with Louisville. So for the viewers, let's try to make it 3 straight winners. Money time play of the day. Back to the association. Teddy, betting number 703, the Celtics. +1, Stevens against Hoiberg. Classic mismatch. They're on fire. They've won 9 of 10. And, 11 of 12, actually, and also 9 of 10. But trying to get that 1 seed, very important. They get the 2 as well. Celtics playing well. We'll take the 1 for the play of the day. Google Hangout tonight, Teddy. You ready?
Yeah, I always have fun. It's I actually look forward to it, which it's almost how my life sucks, man. No, I'm just kidding. Good. But Google, it's a lot of fun. I like the interaction with our viewers, man. It's something that we don't get to do. You know, we're talking into cameras. When we're doing the Google Hangouts, we actually get to talk to you guys and interact in a way that, kind of gets the adrenaline flowing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited too next week because, with the All-Star break, there's no NBA until next Thursday. So we got a guy on to talk soccer and EPL. Ian Cameron will be on to talk hockey. You got a lot of teams on run since they fired their coach. Canadians are in first place. They fired their head coach. How about that? So we'll run everything down with Ian. He's got some good stats. He was part of the Google Hangout chat as well. There was that 19-3 run with an over. I believe it was the Minnesota Wild. So 2 good brand new guests coming on next week as well. We're looking forward to that. Tomorrow's show, we got All-Star Weekend, 3-point shootout, dunk contest, and Kansas, Baylor, Virginia, North Carolina, and USC, UCLA. A loaded show coming up. We'll talk to you then, and thanks for watching SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.